we often think of prayer as a responsibility. When we come to Rosh Hashana, we are called upon to pray. We think often as prayers, we could pray for those things which make sense to pray for. In fact, the Talmud actually has a whole discussion about prayer that is considered to be foolish. For example, the Talmud says that if your wife is pregnant, okay, this is before the ultrasounds. So if your wife is pregnant, do not pray after 40 days. You cannot pray for the gender of the child to be a specific gender. As soon as she becomes pregnant, as soon as you conceive or before you conceive, you can pray for the specific gender. But after 40 days, the Talmud says at that point, the gender has already been ascertained. It's a biological reality, and you cannot pray. Well, you can pray, but it's a prayer it's a prayer that's for naught. It's a silly prayer because the child is already whatever it is. So the Talmud does talk about the fact that can you pray for can you pray for lost causes? Can you pray for things that seemingly are outside of the purview of your prayer? And you would say that probably not. You shouldn't. You should just pray for things that you can have a change in. And the Rebbe says that what Chana did actually was not only teach us how to pray, that we have to pray with our heart, that it's not enough just to come and do the service, do the rite, do the ritual. And it's not enough also just to have it in our hearts, to just feel it, but we have to articulate it. And then when we're praying Shemona Esrei, we're not allowed to raise our voice because it's a sign of humility not to raise your voice. The Rebbe says, besides all of this, that so much of Jewish law is predicated on how Chana taught us how to pray, but there's something else that Chana teaches us, which is this. Chana teaches us, says the Rebbe, that there is a possibility for prayer for something that is seemingly a lost cause. Because if you think about Chana, she was praying now for a situation where it was a given that she would not have children. So much so that while her husband came every year and brought sacrifices and brought offerings, when Chana saw that none of these prayers were being heard and that she was not going to have this child that she wanted, which she clearly did not want only for herself, but for the full expression of herself, that it became a situation where there was no point. And so that's why she became bitter. Bitterness comes from a feeling of helplessness. When a person feels there's no point. When does sarcasm creep into things? Sarcasm creeps in when we feel that all conversation has led to nowhere. All types of communication has led to nowhere. All types of efforts have left to nowhere. And so we become sarcastic, we become bitter. We feel that there is no way out. So Chana had reached that point. She had reached the point that it seemingly was impossible. If the second wife that her husband took had already 10 children, you're talking about 20 years. And so she was at an age where she felt that if it didn't happen for the past 20, 25 years, it's not going to happen anymore. And yet, even though she was in such a desperate situation, she nonetheless prayed. And she prayed in an interesting way. Because she was so broken that all she could do was move her lips because her heart was crushed. But it was precisely that time when she prayed that way that God listened to her. And so the Rebbe says, there's two types of prayer. There's the obligatory prayer that we have every single day. The obligatory prayer that we pray, Shacharit, Mincha, Ma'ariv, depending, for women, we can take upon a certain amount. We don't have to, but certainly for men, they have the responsibility to pray 3 times a day. That obligatory prayer goes for the regular elements of life. We pray to God for things that we need. We thank God for the things that He's given us, and so on and so forth. So that falls under the rubric of standard prayer. The prayer of Chana does not fall under the category of standard prayer. The prayer of Chana falls under the category of prayer of desperation. And the prayer of desperation is a different type of prayer. And you would think that there's no room for that prayer, that if all the doors are locked, that there is no room for that prayer. But precisely, Chana teaches us that no, that even though you're so broken that you can't even give voice to that which is bothering you, to the pain that you're experiencing. And all you could do is cry and move your lips. And your whole body is racked with this pain. Understand that this prayer is a different type of prayer. It goes into a unique category. And it is precisely this type of prayer that can actually bring great openings and great miracles. It was the prayer of Chana that taught us that we go outside the normative prayers that we have every single day, 3 times a day, says the Rebbe, and we lean into a prayer that comes from a desperation that by all metrics should not be fulfilled, and yet it is fulfilled. And this is perhaps the reason why we read about the prayer of Chana on Rosh Hashana, because we are evoking, as it were, not the regular routine prayer, but the energy of Chana, a woman whose heart was shattered into a million pieces, who was on the cusp of desperation, who by all metrics did not fulfill the framework of having a prayer that was answerable. Her prayer was not really answerable, and yet she prayed anyway. And so the Rebbe teaches us that Chana teaches us not just about prayer, the specific things that the Talmud tells us in brachas, about what we learn about the prayer of Chana, but Chana teaches us that there is room. Not only is there room, but that there is a possibility of prayer that is an impossible prayer. Chana's prayer is the prayer of impossibility. And it is specifically this impossible prayer that the Song of Chana reflects on. And it is specifically that type of energy that we bring, or that we are evoking, when we read the Haftarah on the first day of Rosh Hashana. We're not just talking about a story about a woman whose heart was broken because she wanted a child, but it's talking about a prayer that came from a sense of total desperation, of a feeling that everything it's impossible. It's the impossible prayer. And the Rebbe says it's precisely here that Chana is the blazer rather, for us, to show us that this prayer can also be answered. And so that's why, says the Rebbe, we don't learn this element of prayer from our forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They prayed, but they prayed within the framework. They prayed with the morning prayer, the afternoon prayer, the evening prayer. They prayed within the boundaries of normative engagement in prayer. Chana broke the rules. She stood there. Her lips were moving. Her voice could not be heard because her heart was crushed. And above all, she was asking for the impossible. And the Rebbe said, and she was answered with the impossible. Not only the impossible, but her son she doesn't just give birth to a child. He gives birth to the child, the one of the greatest prophets that ever lived. If you look at the Friday night davening, it talks about the power of prayer and the power of the voice of God being brought down on this earth. And it says, Moshe, Aaron, Ushmuel, Bikara Elov. Moses, Aaron, and Samuel, when they called to God. Samuel is the son of Chana. And so this impossible prayer bears not just a fruit, a fulfillment of her dream, but gives to the Jewish people one of the greatest spiritual leaders of all time, who had the prescience to anoint Shaul and later David, who sets the stage for the Davidic dynasty, for the building of the temple, and ultimately for the redemption. So when we invoke the prayer of Chana, says the Rebbe, we we remember, and we are taught to remember, that on Rosh Hashanah, understand this. You may have a prayer that you may say it's not normative, it's beyond. It's an impossible prayer. Is there any point in even articulating it? And says the Rebbe, look at Chana. She didn't just teach us about the Amidah. She didn't just teach us about Kavanah. She didn't just teach us about the fact that we should move our lips, but she taught us about the potency of an impossible prayer. And that is the energy that we lean into on Rosh Hashanah. When we pray to God and we ask God for everything that we ask for. And we might say, but I don't deserve it. I didn't necessarily lead the best year that I should have led. And here I am praying anyway. So you could say I'm an imposter. It's an impossible prayer. And so the Rebbe says, no, don't worry about it. You speak your heart to God and let God do the rest. And that's what the energy that we bring to the prayer. And that comes to us from Chana. This beautiful gift of understanding that when it comes to God, nothing is impossible, but a broken heart and a sincerity opens up the floodgates of redemption, and that anything is possible. So I thought it was so beautiful that we are here just moments away, really just 2 days away from Rosh Hashanah. And we lean into a woman in Israel who taught us not only what prayer looks like and how to pray, but also the power of the impossible prayer. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I want to wish everyone a ksiva v'chasima tova, a l'shana tova metuka. May all our prayers be answered the way the prayers of Chana were answered. And as the Rebbe reminds us, none of us is beyond worthiness. None of us is beyond the capacity to bring down blessing. Every single one of us has the capacity to bring down the blessing of Chana and the prayer of Chana. So we should all merit that God, this Rosh Hashanah, should answer all our prayers individually and collectively for the Jewish people, for Israel, and for each and every one of us in our own lives, within our own families, for health, for prosperity. Like the Rebbe would say, before Yom Kippur, the Rebbe would give all the blessings to the young students. And the Rebbe would say it should be a year, and he would use all the letters of the Aleph base, Aleph to Tav, Ora, Bracha, Gadlus, all the Aleph base, everything, light, blessing, greatness, strength, the opening of all good. So may we all have this year. May this Rosh Hashanah be a year that breaks through the heavens for each and every one of us on a personal level. And may all our prayers be answered the way Chana's prayer was answered. And that is why we include her prayer in the Haftarah, so central on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, even before the blowing of the shofar. So thank you all for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you on 5785.
Thank you, Devorah. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova Mutuka.
Thank you.
Thank you, beautiful.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Devorah.
Thank you, everyone.
Devorah, somebody wants to know, are you going to be davening at Chabad in Westmount Square still?
Yes, we're still in Westmount Square. We are in Westmount Square for another year, not another 9 months. So
okay,
yeah, we're still there. And also, I on Rosh Hashanah, I will be doing a woman's class or / meditation on certain prayers. So we will go out at one point and just do a little bit of a learning and meditation on Rosh Hashanah as well. So I invite whoever.
Do you know what time that'll be? So I can
around 11. It'll be before the blowing of the shofar. So around 11ish. Again, yeah.
So it would be on Thursday.
It will be on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday morning. Yeah.
Around 11 o'clock? All right.
Around 11 o'clock, yes.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Shana Tova from Ottawa.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Thank you.
All the blessings to everyone.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
To you. To you too.